by the Acknowledgement Act. I would like to begin by acknowledging that the land that which we gather is the traditional territory of Anishinaabe, Ottawa, and Mississauga peoples. Confirmation of the agenda that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accepts the agenda for December 5th, 2022 council meeting as presented. Do I have a mover? Councillor McBurney? Councillor Wright? All in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interests? Seeing none. Public comment. This is opportunity for members of the public to speak to an item of business on the agenda. 2 minutes per person. Seeing none. Consent agenda. Does anybody want to pull anything from the agenda? Noted. That the council.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah, thank you, Reeve. This is in the bills, and it's Viola. Now, are they fully staffed when they're working with us?
Go ahead.
Through you, Reeve, in terms of, so we're currently in discussions with Veolia regarding staffing. And so myself and the interim director of public works are currently working through some matters with respect to that. So I'm not able to answer yes or no at this point.
Okay.
We do know that there are some staffing challenges with Veolia, and so we're working with them through those.
I just want it to be known that if there's changes and they're not fully, then we should not be paying the full bill. So hopefully that's reconciled.
Yeah, and duly noted.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, nothing else. Okay, we go that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopts consent items 5.1.1, and further that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.2.1 to 5.3.3. Do I have a mover?
And that should just be 5.3.8.
Oh, 5.3.8. Yes, sorry. Do I have a mover? Deputy Faulkner? Councillor Whitfield? All in favor? Carries. Public meeting, hearings and delegations. This is a special night for us. We have the appreciation, the time that the staff is, they recognize people in the 5-year, 10-year, 15, and yes, 20 years. It's great to see this, a good number, and we just want to make a presentation on behalf of the municipality for all the work that you've shown to us. And we just call a name out at the time, and I think Miss Denise is out.
Yeah, you can take that up a little bit. Flip it over.
Where's her hiding there?
Yeah.
Oh, yep, yep. Okay, our first one is Janisa Campbell. She's with the Early Childhood Educator. Is she here tonight?
Yes.
Janisa. Oh yes, she was in the parade.
Yes.
Pulling the little one, I remember that. That was really good seeing that.
She wants to hang out with mom. So she's
Yep, that's all right. I don't blame her. Come on up, Denise. We just appreciate the time. Just thank you for the many years of helping us out. That's really appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
A little gift for you.
Thank you. One, two, three. Turned on.
Thank you very much. Next one, no stranger to us, Mr. Dwayne Evans, our CAO. He's our chief administrator official, deputy / deputy clerk. And we appreciate all the work Dwayne does for us, and we always have questions for him, and he's willing. Sometimes he can't get back to us real quick, but you do, and I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. A gentleman by the name of Ken. Ken Mathers. We appreciate the work that you do here, Ken. We know you used to run cross country many, many years ago, and I know I see you going from A to B. It's really much appreciated, the work that you do and your patience with us and with the people you have to talk to. It's really much appreciated. Thank you very much, Ken.
Thanks, Paul.
There's Jordan, back there. Come on up, Jordan. You have to talk nice to this gentleman because I'm in sort of a dead-end road, and the plow has to get over to the other side, so I always hope he's past our driveway before he starts pulling over. It's a lot of snow. Josh, appreciate the work you do for us. Thanks very much.
One, two, three.
Tiffany. We'll let Mom come up, girls. Thank you for all the work that you do down there, Tiffany. I know it must be busy some mornings down there and afternoons and even maybe at dinner time. But just appreciate the work that you do for us.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Kelsey. Okay, that's the last of the 5-year people. Now we're moving on to the 10. We have Micah. Oh, and Nathan, not here.
Mike is working.
Okay, they're working. Well, I'm glad somebody's worked. That's good. Yeah, Mike, he'll be busy in the rink for sure. And they're the 10-year representatives tonight. And now we're moving on to the 15-year. 15-year here? Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Tricia. I don't see Tricia.
No, Tricia's not here.
Okay. Lori. Again, Lori Bader, working in the early childhood educator. Again, they must never have a dull moment, I'm sure of it. Just having our own kids at home, if you have a whole nest of them, is very much appreciated, your work that you do. Thank you very much, Lori. We go way down the chart here, 20 years. 20 years, I can't believe it. Melissa, come on up. When we were having sort of our orientation, Melissa was up showing us how to do some of the exercising. Well, not really doing the exercising, but I was enjoying how you show. I'm not going to argue with you at
I was
all.
going to say, I threatened to make you do the exercise.
Yeah, right, and that would be it. Well, thank you very much
Okay.
for your time, Melissa.
you.
Appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh. Yeah, do that again.
Oh, this younger
I know, they don't know how to use the technology.
They're under 20, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So maybe I'll just note the ones that that couldn't be here tonight for various reasons. The first one is Joss Mackin, who's the Public Works lead hand, and he's been with us for 5 years. Kelsey Strong, who's an early childhood educator, who's been with us for 5 years. Nathan O'Neill, who is a roads operator, who's been with us for 10 years. Micah Loader, who's a recreation operator, who's been with us for 10 years. And Tricia McLean, who's the manager of Child Care Services, who's been with us for 15 years.
The work by each of these people is very much appreciated by the township. Thank you very much. So we'll just maybe give them a moment to clear, if someone want to go. Okay, now we're going to the clerk's department, 7.1.1, CL 2022-13, procedural bylaw. Do I have a mover? Deputy Reed Faulkner, Councillor McBurney. And do we have any questions for Clerk Lamb? No questions for Clerk Lamb on this? Okay, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the clerk dated December 5th, 2022 regarding the procedural bylaw. All those in favor? Carried. 7.1.2, CL 2022-14, Council Remuneration and Expenses Bylaw. May I have a mover? Anita? Seconder? Councillor Whitfield. That the Council of the Township of North Huron. Any questions for Mr. Lamb? Clerk Lamb? No. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, just a procedural one. Noticed didn't find, going through it, that there was no indication as to any scheduling or any procedure as to revisiting this at any time. In the past, it was just come up to whenever, I don't know, whether it was just situations to come up that we would consider delving back into this bylaw. Just wondering if there's nothing in here for a time frame, as we have with everything else, where we every 3 years it gets revisited, or every 5 years it gets. Has there been any consideration or any reasoning why that wouldn't be?
Yes, so through you, Reeve Heffer, to answer Deputy Falconer's question, best practice is that it's reviewed in the last year of the term of council. In the 2018 to 2022 term of council, it was reviewed a few more times as a result of legislative changes, which removed the 1/3 tax exemption, and we needed direction on that. But beyond that, generally your practice is in the last year of each term of council, and with the improvements we made to it so that the honorarium and meeting pay amounts are adjusted by COLA, it should keep in line with the neighboring municipalities that we should be well off if we're just reviewing it every 4 years.
Thank you for that clarification.
Any other questions on this report? Okay, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the Clerk's Administrative Assistant dated December 5th, 2022 regarding the Council Remuneration and Expenses Bylaw. All in favor? Carried. 7.1.3 CL 2022-15 Complaint Handling Policy. May I mover? Councillor Palmer, Councillor McBurney. Any questions for Clerk Lamb? Clear? Great. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report, clerk dated December 5th, 2022, regarding the complaint handling policy orientation for information purposes. All in favor? Carried. 7.1.4 CL 2022-16 schedule of 2023 regular council meetings. May I have a mover?
Oh,
Oh,
and so
sorry.
if I can clarify that one, so this is one where we will need direction on. So as council's aware, we did circulate a survey to you to see what time of meetings work best, and with an overwhelming amount of in favor of kind of late afternoon, early evening meetings, and knowing this, we've provided 3 potential options in regard to start time. So option A is 4:30, option B is 5 o'clock, option C is 6 o'clock. Obviously, that's not an exhaustive list, but those are some options we've provided. And then beyond that, the rest of the report is in regard to the schedule of meetings, and the schedule we've pulled together is the exact same approach we've used for the past at least 3 years now, with 1 meeting in January, 1 meeting in August, and scheduling around our major conferences each year.
Okay. Any other questions for Clerk Lamb? Go ahead, Councillor Van Hitterson.
Thank you, Reeve Heffer. When, if we choose for option A or B, will we be able to move the public comments to a later time to give people the opportunity to come in after work, or is that not important?
So through Reeve Bailey, to answer Councillor Van Heersum's question, short answer, yes and no. Yes, you can amend the order of any standing items of business on your agenda through an amendment to your procedure bylaw. So that's certainly something that can be done. I guess the piece of, if you move the public opportunity for public comments section later on in your meeting, will have potentially discussed items that members of the public would have been attending to comment on. Right, so that's generally why we have it first thing, so that council receives that feedback in advance of discussing those agenda items. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so want me to take care, or are you going to do the vote?
Yeah, so basically, I guess you have Councillor
Oh,
Palmer's
I'm
hand up,
sorry,
but-
go ahead.
Yeah, Ray, is option C off the table?
All the options are on the table, and it's up to council to provide direction on which option you would prefer.
So do you want some comments on which option would be
Yes, this.
better? Yeah. Option C, like the status quo, works really well, because then you can at least get your day's work done and then come in and do this work. So that works best for me.
Go ahead, Councillor Van Hitterson.
Thank you, yeah. I think the comment was for staff that option A and B, we would take up less of staff time, and if we have presenters from the county or from somewhere else, that it would be easier to have those in and more affordable in the end. There's less break time in between. Personally, I'm fine with either time. It doesn't matter to me, but it's for staff to have a shorter day than starting early in the morning and have to go on till maybe 9 or 10 o'clock if we have closed meetings or anything like that.
Go
So
ahead.
Reeve, do we think of ourselves or do we think of staff? Like, they're, both have different or opposing needs, we'll say. You know, this is 2 meetings a month.
Go ahead.
Reeve Heffer, we already talked about the public. If we change the timing again, as it was said before, we could be making it so they couldn't be here. And as Carson has said too, we would be dealing with stuff before they had a chance to get here. So we stay status quo. I think maybe the best number to use is that 6 o'clock one.
Okay. Any other comments from councillors? Well, it's between the three, so I guess really, in all fairness, we should take a vote. So
Yeah, so your process now is someone needs to move a motion, and there's the recommended motion there, and you just have to fill in option A, B, or C. I will note, with option C, some of that recommended motion won't be necessary because you wouldn't have to amend your procedure bylaw, because it would be the same. So,
Okay.
based on, I guess, whatever option council wants to move, I will read a draft motion back.
Okay. So I'll go with,
You have Deputy Reeve.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, through you, Reeve, I would like to make a motion to stay as a status quo, up for vote for the 6:30, or 6 o'clock start time.
Okay.
I'll second that
Second.
motion.
So then your motion on the floor would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the Clerk's Administrative Assistant dated December 5th, 2022 regarding the 2023 schedule for regular council meetings, and further that council hereby approves the start time as set out in option C of Staff Report CL 2022-16. And further that the proposed 2023 schedule for regular meetings of council be approved and posted.
All in favor? Carried. 7.1.5, CL 2022-17, appointment of an alternate to county council. Do you have a mover? Counselor Van Hitterson? Counselor McBurney? That the council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the clerk dated December 5th, 2022 regarding the appointment of an alternate to the County of Huron Council. And further, that council directs the clerk to prepare a bylaw for the December 19th, 2022 regular council meeting, which would permit Deputy Reeve Faulkner to act as an alternate to the Reeve at Huron County Council. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, 7.1.6, it's the CL 2022-18 appointments to boards and committees from 2022 to 2026. May I have a mover?
So that's the one we'll need to amend for direction.
Okay.
So I guess, because this is a lengthy report, maybe I'll kind of speak to this at a high level. So the report's divided into two sections. One is your council representative appointments to your external boards or external committees and your local boards. And the second half of it is committees of council. All the various committees or external committees and local boards where we have had appointments in the past are noted in the report, as well as whether there's generally like a ward specific or individual who has traditionally sat on those in the past. Before you, as you're aware, I circulated a survey where each counselor was requested to provide their preferred committees, and that is before you on the piece of paper there. So unless that is of concern, we tried to accommodate everyone's preferred choices the best we could. So unless that's of concern for anyone, I would proceed with that as my draft recommended motion to council. Beyond that, the second half of the report is your committees of council. So obviously, council has the ability to establish committees of council if they so desire. In the report is noted various committees of council that could potentially be established. The one thing that I'll note is obviously committees of council require resources, so you want to make sure the committees are necessary or can be justified if you're wanting to divert your resources towards them. So basically at that point, we would require direction on which committees of council you would want to add to that motion, if any. And then basically your next step in the process is we would bring back draft terms of reference for council's consideration. Once those terms of reference are adopted by council, then we would proceed with recruitment to those committees in accordance with the committee appointment bylaw. And then following that, council would get the any applications received, consider the appointments, make those appointments, and then we would proceed with scheduling those meetings. I guess the two things to note in there relate to, so the fundraising committee, for example, we have noted in there that there's been a number of I guess maybe the word is maybe changes since the last time council considered. So if council wanted to proceed with the fundraising committee, we've also recommended that we would bring forward a staff report with that, with the terms of reference that would kind of speak to the developments that have occurred since council last saw that. And then the other thing noted is the Wingham Homecoming Committee. Staff were arranging to proceed with a meeting with the organizers to make sure they have a full understanding of what being a committee of council would entail. That hasn't necessarily occurred yet, so you'll likely see a separate report in regard to the Wingham Homecoming Committee at a future meeting. So I guess, yeah, if you want to deal with this report in two ways, I would say first you deal with your appointments to boards and committees, and then secondly, then you deal with your committees of council, and we can certainly do that through two separate motions.
Okay. Okay, CL 2022-18, appointments to the boards and committees. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Mover?
So you'll have to fill in the, so I guess, yeah, for ease of discussion, I've circulated this list. I guess, is there any concerns from councilors with the committees that they're assigned to at this time? If not, I'll read that motion as is based on that. If not, then we can have a discussion.
Okay.
Through you, Reeve. Yeah, just a clarification on the second one down, the Sauble Bayfield Maitland Valley Safe Drinking Water Source Protection Committee, made up of North Huron, Morris Turnberry, and Huron East. Just the way it's worded, is one council representative from Morris Turnberry and Huron East have already appointed the Reeve to continue in this position. Is there a representative from Morris Turnberry? So it's by a proclamation, it wasn't by a vote.
So, yeah, so basically that position represents the central grouping, which is comprised of North Huron, Huron East, and Morris Turnberry. Both those municipalities have already had their meetings where they've discussed their appointments to boards and committees, and both of them have passed motions recommending that Reeve Heffer continue on. So basically that's kind of why you see it the way we do right now.
Yeah, I was just concerned with another municipality having to choose someone from our board and not have choice from there. So, all right, thank you for the clarification.
Yep. So then again, if I'm not hearing any concern, then I'd look for a motion that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the clerk dated December 5th, 2022 regarding appointments to boards and committees for the 2022 to 2026 term of council for information purposes. And further, that council hereby appoints Councillor Mitch Wright as the council representative to the Alice Munro Festival of the Short Story. And further, that council hereby appoints Reeve Heffer as the council representative to the Sauble Bayfield Maitland Valley Drinking Water Source Protection Committee for the central grouping. And further, that council hereby appoints Councillor Rick McBurney as the council representative to the Coalition for Huron Injury Prevention, CHIP. And further, that council hereby appoints Councillor Rick McBurney as the council representative to the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan Advisory / Oversight Committee. And further, that the council hereby appoints Councillor Lonnie Whitfield as the council representative to the Huron County Sustainable Huron Committee. And further, that council hereby appoints Councillor Chris Palmer as the council representative to the Huron County Water Protection Steering Committee. And further, that council hereby appoints Councillor Van Hittersum as the council representative to the Perth North Huron Family Health Team Board for North Huron, Morris Turnberry, Asheville, Cobra-Wawanosh, Huron-Kinloss, and South Bruce until September of 2023. And further, that council hereby appoints Councillor Van Hittersum as the council representative for the Wingham and Area Health Professionals Recruitment Committee. And further, that council appoints Councillor Chris Palmer as the council representative to the Columbus Center Joint Committee. And further, that council hereby appoints Councillor Rick McBurney and Deputy Reeve Kevin Falconer as the council representatives to the Blythe Hullet Landfill Site Board. And further, that council hereby appoints Deputy Reeve Falconer as the council representative to the Blythe Business Improvement Area Board. And further, that council hereby appoints Councillor Anita Van Hittersum as the council representative to the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority Board. And further, that council hereby appoints Reeve Paul Heffer as the council representative to the Westario Power Inc. Board. And further, that council hereby appoints Councillor Mitch Wright as the council representative to the Wingham Business Improvement Area Board. And further, council hereby appoints Councillors Lonnie Whitfield, Councillor Chris Palmer, and Councillor Mitch Wright as the council representatives to the Wingham Landfill Site Board.
Okay, mover, Rick McBurney, Councillor Palmer, all in favor? Carried.
So then the second part of that is dealing with your committees of council and which ones you would like us to proceed with bringing back a terms of reference for. And then I've noted the little caveats there with the fundraising committee and the Wingham Homecoming Committee. Council basically needs to provide direction on if you want to have certain committees of council.
Okay, do we have direction from council of what you want to do for the committees? You gotta help me out here, I'm not sure where this is.
It's just at the bottom of this part here and all that.
Sorry. And further, that the council hereby directs.
Councilor Palmer had his hand up.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. So as of now, neither one of these committees are in effect.
As of right now, there are no committees of
No.
council in effect as a result of the transition to the new
So
council.
if we don't do anything, then, say, one could be brought back if there was need. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so if we did nothing, then we let it run.
Yep, so that, through Reeve Heffer to Councilor Palmer, establishing committees of council is 100% within the discretion of council. So I guess if what I'm hearing here is there doesn't appear to be a need to establish a committee of council at this time, then that is 100% within council's right. And when the need comes forward, you can by all means consider it then.
Okay, so,
I have a question.
yeah, go ahead.
For you, Reeve. Would it be prudent to inform the former committees that were committees of council that it is come to terms that every 4 years it comes to council as to be what any requests for committee of councils, so that they may be informed that they are outside of the envelope of a committee of council as maybe they thought they were in the last year or so, and would give them some cause to, if they had so did concern that they could bring forward a motion or a delegation to council to ask for committees of council. Just, it would be a polite thing to do to inform them that they're no longer at that point right now, rather than just us saying they weren't.
Yeah, and through Reeve Heffer to Deputy Reeve Falconer, we can certainly do that. We have communicated that prior, usually through the chairs of the respective committees. So I sincerely hope that all committees know that they're no longer in effect. So.
It was just as a follow-up. It was like late in our term last year, almost before lame duck, that the homecoming came through and said that they wanted to proceed. I just wanted to make sure that they knew that they would have to come back. That's all.
Yes, and yeah, with the Wingham Homecoming Committee in particular, they were aware that they had to come back. They have reached out to staff, and basically staff we're looking to schedule a meeting with them to make sure that they understood the committee of council structure and requirements, and if that's how they still wish to proceed. As of now, I guess, because I did have a phone call with the one of the representatives for that group, and they are still wanting to proceed as a county of council, and based on what has been relayed to me through that is if that they will likely be in attendance at the December 19th meeting to request that they be established as a committee of council.
So could you read the motion? Go ahead.
Another point there is that it was brought up by former Deputy Reeve Sipe that the continuation of the Policing Advisory Committee be carried forward until such time as we had the new agreement in place. I'm just wondering if we put a blanket that everybody has to come back, are we going to see these come back? Like, I mean, you're gonna have to bring. Would it be the OPP bringing that back to us, or because there's no longer a committee?
Through Reeve Heffer to answer Deputy Reeve Falconer's question. So with that one, the staff recommendation was not to proceed, and really the rationale behind that was twofold. One is there is an OPP detachment board framework that we did receive approval for, where there will be a Huron OPP detachment board where North Huron has a representative, and the proposed timeline is fall of 2023. So logistically, we just didn't see it making sense to establish a committee that would have potentially 2 to 3 meetings, because generally they would meet quarterly, and while at the same time learning the new legislation and training the new representative to sit on that new framework, we would still be training new people to sit on something composed of the old framework. So really that's the recommendation behind that. But we did receive correspondence on the timelines of that, so I think it's a safe bet that is the direction the provincial government is going. So naturally, that'll happen on its own as the OPP detachment board for Huron County gets formed. So the OPP won't have to request anything, I guess, because we already have an approved structure for that.
Thank you for that clarification.
Go ahead.
Reeve, so just in terms of for clarification for council, so everyone's clear, so if council wishes to consider, and I'm just using this as an example, a community policing advisory committee, what you would do is you would pass a motion directing staff to bring back draft terms of reference for council's consideration. Similarly, if you wanted, an economic advisory committee, again, you would direct staff to bring back terms of reference for that committee, or what was the other one here? Sorry. The Environmental Advisory Committee is another one. So if council wishes to establish those committees, again, you would direct staff to prepare terms of reference, and the terms of reference will speak to the mandate of that committee, the composition. Council would then approve those terms of reference, and then staff would undertake to advertise for whatever public opportunities or vacancies there are on those committees. So if council established a community policing advisory committee, for example, and you decided it's going to be a 5-member committee and 2 are going to be councillors and 3 are going to be members of the public, then we would advertise for 3 members of the public. Applications be received, council would receive and review those applications, and then you would appoint whoever you decide to that particular committee, along with whoever you decide as your council representative. So just to help clarify perhaps a little bit process, if that maybe helps in terms of deciding what committees you want. But going back to Councillor Palmer's comment, there's nothing to say that you don't establish a committee at any point in the future.
No, yeah.
So you might decide, you know what, we're not going to establish this committee today, but you may decide next spring you want to establish that committee, and you're certainly well within your right to do so. So just to clarify, perhaps, process.
So we need a motion for that.
So I would recommend that you pass a motion regardless. So if the motion is to not establish any committees of council at this time, I would recommend that you pass that as a motion too. That way, for example, the groups involved in potentially some of these committees at least have some sort of clarity on where they stand at this point. And if they want to come and request delegation before council to kind of further elaborate on why there should be a committee, they have every ability to do so.
Has that motion been made?
So at this point, there's no motion on directing staff to establish any terms of reference at this point. But
So would I have a mover on that motion that was just presented to us? Councillor Deputy Reeve Pulver, followed by Councillor McBurney.
So maybe I'll read the draft motion based on what I'm hearing, and I'll look to the mover and the seconder to make sure that's what you guys are looking for. But basically, your motion would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the clerk dated December 5th, 2022, regarding appointments to boards and committees for the 2022 to 2026 term of council for information purposes, and further that council does not direct for further investigation of committees of council at this time.
All right with you two?
That's fine, yes.
Perfect, okay. All in favor? Carried. 7.1.7, CL 2022-19, appointment of Court of Revision. We have a mover and a seconder, Councillor Van Hitterson.
So, my apologies, Reeve Pepper, but that's another one where I will need some direction as well. So the report before you outlines kind of the requirements under the Drainage Act to establish a Court of Revision. Generally, what has been done in the past is, so I guess, for clarity, it has its own separate appointment by law in comparison to the council representative appointments you just made. So what I need to, in order to prepare that Court of Revision appointment by law for the December 19th meeting is the names of 3 members who would compose the Court of Revision, and the 4th member who would act as the alternate for the Court of Revision if one of the members of the court was unable to attend. And basically what happens when you have so for example, a Section 78 drainage request for improvements is when you get to that point in the process, we would appoint by motion of council the Court of Revision for that specific drainage works. So at this point, looking for the names of 3 primary members and 1 alternate member to that Court of Revision.
I believe we should have the East Wallanosh on for sure. That's usually where all the drains are happening. Is that all right? You had your hand?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer? We need another one and then an alternate. Do I have-
I'll put my name forward. I'm a fairly light so far on the, and it's not a busy schedule to try and make up for in the revisions usually. So I'll put my name forward.
Okay, Councillor. And we need an alternate?
That would be an alternate.
Okay, thank you very much.
So with that, I would be looking for a mover of a motion that would read that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the clerk dated December 5th, 2022 regarding appointment of the Court of Revision for information purposes, and further that council directs the clerk to prepare a bylaw for the December 19th, 2022 regular council meeting to appoint the following members to the Court of Revision under the Drainage Act, RSO 1990, Chapter D 17, for the 2022 to 2026 term of council. Councillor Palmer, Councillor Van Hitterson, Deputy Reeve Falconer, and the alternate member, Councillor Whitfield.
We have a mover.
I'll move that.
Councillor Wright, seconder. Councillor Van Hitterson. All in favor? Carried.
So the next 2 I'll need direction on too.
Okay, this 7.1.8, CL 2022-20, composition of Committee of Adjustment. Again, our Clerk Lamb will address this.
Yes, so the report before you speaks to the composition of Committee of Adjustment. So Committee of Adjustment, in large part, holds public meetings and makes decisions on minor variance applications for applicants seeking variances to the township zoning bylaw. And really the purpose of the report is just to indicate that Although the Committee of Adjustment has been comprised of all members of council in the past, that is not the only option. So basically, we've provided various options for council's consideration. And really, the rationale behind this is the Committee of Adjustment is independent and autonomous of council. So generally, when you have a different structure compared to council sitting as the Committee of Adjustment, it helps provide that distinguish or clarity between the two separate bodies. So again, there's 6 options noted in the report. It's by no means an exhaustive list of all the available options, but really a list of all the options that are most commonly used among municipalities in Ontario. So for direction on this one, I would need an option number filled in to the recommended motion there.
First of all, I'll ask if there's any questions go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Well, it's not such a question. I'm in favor of option 1 because I liked it with our last council, all of us participating. It gave everybody more of a feel for what's happening in the municipality and experience. I thought it was a good education for everybody.
Okay. Anybody else? Is any questions for Clerk Lamb? Okay, go ahead.
So is that?
I can make that a motion.
Okay, so
Please.
the motion Councillor Palmer would be moving would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the clerk dated December 5th, 2022 regarding the composition of the Committee of Adjustment for information purposes, and further that Council directs staff to proceed with option 1 for the composition of the Committee of Adjustment for the 2022 to 2026 term of council, and further that Council directs the clerk to prepare a bylaw for a future regular council meeting to appoint the Committee of Adjustment for the Township of North Huron.
Councillor Palmer moved it. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Wright, all in favor? Carried. 7.1.9, CL 2022-21, composition of Property Standards Committee. Again, sort of along the same line, and I'll turn it over to Clerk Lamb.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve Heffer. So again, that report is written very similar to the one you just dealt with in regard to the Committee of Adjustment. Really, the purpose of it is, although Council has sat as the Property Standards Committee in the past, they're separate bodies. This Property Standards Committee established under the requirements of the Building Code Act. And so again, 6 options in the report for you, not a full exhaustive list of the potential options, but seeking council direction on which option you want to proceed with.
Does anybody have any input? Councillors? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Van Henderson.
Thank you, Riva, for, I think the same thing as what Councillor Palmer just noted, option 1 because of all the education, and on the other hand, I think it's very hard to find volunteers to sit on this committee. And most of the time, the meetings are in front of council meetings, so everybody could be there anyways.
Any other input from any councillor? Okay, go ahead.
So in your making that a motion, Councillor Van Henderson?
Yes.
Yep, so the draft motion that Councillor Van Henderson has moved would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the clerk dated December 5th, 2022 regarding the composition of the Property Standards Committee for information purposes, and further that Council directs staff to proceed with option 1 for the composition of the Property Standards Committee for the 2022 to 2026 term of council, and further that Council directs the clerk to prepare a bylaw for a future regular council meeting to appoint the Property Standards Committee for the Township of North Huron.
And that's moved by Councillor, she made the motion, and moved by?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Second. All in favor? Carried. Purchasing Finance 2022-26, purchasing of goods, services, and construction policy. May I have a mover and a seconder?
I'll move it.
Deputy Reeve Faulkner. Seconder.
Second.
Councillor Wright. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives report from the Director of Finance, Treasurer dated December 5th, 2022 regarding the purchasing of goods, services, and construction policy for information purposes. Are there any questions for Director Towns? Yes, go
Thank
ahead.
you, Reeve. I was just wondering what are the changes with the last one? Is there a larger amount, or?
We'll just ask Director to come.
And I guess from the one you saw in last term of council, there's
Yeah.
no changes. This one's
No
just being
changes.
provided as an orientation.
Okay, yep.
Would you like to say anything about the report at all?
No, that's fine, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lamb.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So we have a mover and a seconder? Did we have a mover and a seconder? Yep. Okay, all in favor? Carried. Seven point 6.1, CAO 2022-19, update on restricted acts of council during the lame duck period, delegation of authority. Mr. Evans, do you want to say anything to this report?
Thanks, Reeve. Nothing in particular. As council's aware, we were in lame duck from the period of August 19th to November 21st of 2022 of this year as a result of the election. And earlier this March, council had delegated authority for myself to act on behalf of council to deal with any restricted acts. And the purpose of this report is to inform council as far as how that delegated authority was exercised during that time period. But the delegation ceased as of November 21st, so.
Okay, any questions for CAO Evans and council? Okay, do I have a mover?
I'll move.
Okay, Deputy Reed. Seconder, Councillor Palmer. That the council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the CAO dated December 5th, 2022 regarding the actions taken by the CAO for the period of August 19th, 2022 to November 21st on restricted acts of council, known as lame duck, delegation of authority for information purposes. And further that council adopt bylaw 106-22, being a bylaw appointing Chris Towns as Director of Finance / Treasurer effective October 31st, 2022. And further that council adopt bylaw number 107-2022, being a bylaw repealing Julie Wheeler's appointment as interim treasurer and reappointing Julie Wheeler as deputy treasurer / payroll clerk effective October 31st, 2022. And further that the council adopt bylaw number 108-2022, being a bylaw repelling Marty Bedard's appointment as fire chief effective December 5th, 2022, and appointing Kent Radman as North Huron's fire chief effective December 5th, 2022. And further, that the council adopt bylaw number 109-2022, being a bylaw repelling Jamie McCarthy's appointment as Director of Public Works and Facilities effective November 21st, 2022, and appointing Chip Wilson as interim Director in Public Works and Facilities effective November 22, 22. All in favor? Carried. 7.6.2 CAO 2022-20 Code of Conduct for Member of Council and Local Boards, Accountability and Transparency. Do you have a mover? Councillor Palmer, Councillor Van Hitterson, all in, at this time, any questions for our CAO Evans? No questions? I guess we got lots of information there that we could read. So ask all in favor. Carried. 7.6.3 CAO 2022-21 Business Improvement Area Governance and Constitutions. May I have a mover on that, or I better wait?
So this is, so unfortunately, our economic development officer suddenly couldn't be here tonight, so I'm going to speak to this on his behalf. We have taken the BIA constitutions for the Wingham for Wingham and Blythe, and we've looked at updating them based on best practices and in an effort to align the two in governance models as best as possible. But there's obviously some areas where we thought council direction would be more prudent. And really, those are for the Blythe Constitution. That's in regard to sections 2.4, 2.9, and 2.12.1. And in regard to Wingham, that's in regard to section 2.9. I will note in the report 2.12.14 of the Blythe Constitution in regard to their fiscal year. That one has corrected itself on its own. We've been informed by someone in the Blythe BIA that is just an oversight, and their fiscal year is from January 1st to December 31st. The easiest way to approach this is just to go to the section by section. In the reports, there are various options for council's consideration, and so we're seeking direction on those options. Beginning with section 2.4 of the Blythe BIA Constitution, which is the appointment of the board to the Board of Management. The ECDev officer has provided three various options in the for council's consideration of what that composition should look like. There's 1A is the current governance model, which permits specific seats for the Blythe Center of the Arts, Blythe Service Clubs, Blythe Church Groups and Organizations, and associate voting members. There's specific seats as designated positions on the Board of Management. So that's 1A. 1B is basically a change that would allow for the BIA board to be composed of a simple minimum number of members and a maximum number of members. So for example, Wingham BIA's constitution basically says a minimum of five members and a maximum of 9 members of the business community who pay into the levy. And then option 1C is council keeps some of the designated delegate positions. And if that's the case, we would need direction on which designated positions you would want to keep, and then basically we will take this direction and we'll provide it back into the draft BIA constitutions, which will then be presented to the entire membership at their annual general meetings for approval, and then it'll come back to council for final approval. With that one, so again, there's option 1A, 1B, and 1C, and the staff comment is basically that BIAs rarely have seats designated for specific organizations. The Wingham one does not, Blythe one does. It's just a matter of does council want to continue that approach or change it.
Okay. Questions for Clerk Lamb? Go
Yes.
ahead, Deputy Reeve.
Through you, Reeve, I'm just curious, as I don't have the knowledge base of the recommendations and how they're going to affect each of the Blythe and Wingham BIAs. If the council would permit it, I see we have in audience here the chairman for the Blythe BIA. I would love to hear his comments as to what their preferences would be going forward, because it does change can change the number of members and their levy in this report, and as to the size of what is encompassed in the BIA versus whether it's commercial, industrial, property owner, who's involved in it. I would like to hear from the people that it's their committee as to what their preference would be, because I'm not going to sit here and think that I can tell a BIA how to run their business. So,
Can I go ahead?
if that's permissible, I would ask the indulgence of the.
Yeah, so I guess 2 points. One is it's permissible at the discretion of the chair, and 2, also the constitutions have to go to the BIAs, to their whole membership. So I guess the thought process behind this is that the entire membership will provide that feedback, and then council will get it again too. So I just want to more than, if at the discretion of the chair, more than permitted to have them speak now, but also this is not the end of the feedback process from the BIAs. I just want to communicate that as well.
I'll allow the gentleman to speak there, I believe.
Anything that you want
Okay.
to say to this, David?
You'll just give us a little bit.
Just about. Put you on the spot here.
Well, firstly, thank you for the indulgence. My first general comment is congratulations to all of you for being elected. Coming from Blythe, we're excited to have Councillors Faulkner and McBurney back for us, and grateful for their service to our community, and wish all the rest of you all the best as well. For those of you who don't know me, I'm David Sparling. I'm the chair of the Blythe Business Improvement Area. With me is Shane Urama. Shane is the vice chair of the Blythe BIA and sits on North Huron's Economic Development Committee. And with Shane is Colleen Jordan. Colleen is a past secretary of the Blythe BIA and sits on the Blythe BIA's marketing committee. When first, as a general comment, I didn't know anything about this until Friday when I got an email from one of our members saying, how come you didn't tell us there was a review of our Constitution? And it's like, what are you talking about? And it's on the council agenda for Monday night. And I said, well, I wasn't aware of that. And the response was, well, if the chair isn't aware, were you at least aware it was even going to come up before council? And it's like, no. So as a general ask, I look at your agenda tonight and, oh my gosh, you got 300 pages of reading. God, for those of you who are new, welcome. but Lord love you. I just would encourage and ask that when things like this are coming, and there are substantial changes, to make it more expedient, because I can tell you there'll be pushback on some of this at our meeting, which then means it comes back to council, comes back to us, comes back. I would encourage some sort of dialogue, some sort of engagement with us through this process, so that we're aware it's going on, so it's not a surprise to our members that there are some substantial changes being talked about. I would encourage, if it's coming before council, that someone let us know it's coming before council, so that we, if we feel we should have some, make a formal delegation or submit papers to contribute to the dialogue, that we're aware of it. The general gist of things in the Blythe BIA is the Blythe BIA is built on the idea of being a community of businesses. As you guys are aware, Blythe is a very small community. The number of businesses is very small. And while some are on the main street and some are not, frankly, we receive correspondence from people that would now be excluded from this list. And what goes on at some of our largest industrial places actually has an impact on the parking on our main street, which is an ongoing issue, has an impact on vehicular traffic on our main street, which is an ongoing issue. But most importantly is that the intention of the Blythe BIA is the whole premise of being a community of businesses. Because in a town our size, we all need to work together or we get divisive. And I guess at the end of the day, that's where I'd start on this. But our ask would be is that if we could have some engagement with Dimitri, with Carson, whomever else, and when there's a proposal that comes before our board, comes before council, the context to why we do what we do, the context as to why it was set up the way it is, and the context as to why we would want changes, because in fact I've actually spoken with Carson about enlarging our Blythe BIA area. Because if you're a BIA member, there are provincial programs you have access to that if you're not, you don't, which means there are businesses within North Huron that were ineligible for grants for websites because they weren't part of a BIA. So I'd like to have those kind of conversations. Our board would like to have those kind of conversations so that when you get a 300-page agenda, it's not something that goes to our annual meeting, then it comes back to you guys with changes, then presumably it comes back to us again, just to make it more efficient. And frankly, for our members, and I think for you folks as well, there's a lot of stuff going on. And the more we work together, the more we collaborate, and the more we get in front of stuff as opposed to behind it, I think the easier it is to make things move forward instead of getting stalled out in process. So I don't want to speak on behalf of all of our membership about the specifics here, because most of our membership is unaware of this. Our board is, which is why you've got us here this evening. But our ask would be, in the sake of efficiency, in the sake of the spirit of community, and frankly, in the sake of working with council and working with staff, that we be included at the front end of the process and aware of what's going on with stuff like this that's relevant to our organization, and help provide a meaningful and quick and efficient way to get to the other side with something that's a win for everybody. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Sparling. Are there any questions that you want to bring forward at this time? I see a hand down there, and then I'll go to you, Deputy Reeve. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Okay, these are one observation is in the mapping, why has Blythe got 4 options and Wingham's the 2?
Yeah, so luckily I did ask Dimitri this before he left, and my understanding, the reason why is because in Wingham, virtually option 2 would be the same as option 3 and 4 in Wingham, and by that is basically all the businesses that would generally be in. Just bear with me as I go back to the options here. All the businesses that would generally be in your commercial and highway commercial is virtually doesn't change anything for Wingham, but does for Blythe. So that's why there's the additional options. I don't know if I articulated that the greatest, but if you'd like me to further clarify that, I can, Councillor Palmer.
No, that's good. Can I have a follow-up?
Yes.
For Blythe, I'm just curious, like, I don't agree with having church associations on. It's not a business. It's community facility. I totally makes sense, the commercial industrial. And if we want to reach as far as the industry around, you say entire village catches all the businesses. The Playhouse it's kind of a business, but it's the one in Wingham is a community facility. It's not equaled out there. But in any event, mostly the churches, I don't see that one as being relevant in there. They're probably looking for members, but they should be able to find, like, there's enough stores and stuff, they should find enough members to do the job, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. Deputy Reeve?
Thank you. My main comment, secondly, firstly, I'm glad they brought up the separation from church and state. I can see why why we have the Knights of Columbus Hall is included, but now he's wanting to exclude another facet of a religious from a BIA that he has no authority over. Secondly, I would like to make a motion to table this piece of legislation for the time being and instruct staff to engage in a dialogue between the BIAs and the Business Improvement Department, so that may become some clarity to this, because I don't think it's fair asking us to make the boundaries for the Committee of Council when it's not a derivative of council. It's an organization on their own, just as a Committee of Council. So us making a boundary and how many members they're allowed to have, I think that goes beyond our reach as far as a council. So for that, I wish to table it and instruct staff to have a conversation.
Yep. So if I may, brief effort to Deputy Reeve Falconer's there. I guess so the the uniqueness of the timing right now is that the BIA ceased to exist. So I guess if that's the approach you want us to take, what we would do is we would encourage the BIA memberships for both Blythe and Wingham to have their AGMs in January, and we would then have Dimitri present the constitutions at their AGMs for that feedback, and then bring something back to council to be adopted. If they wanted feedback, and then council, basically the uniqueness about a constitution is it can only be approved by the entire membership of a BIA. So I guess, not to speak to Dimitri's thought process on this one, but basically I believe where he was going with this one is that we didn't want to present something to the BIAs if council had no interest in entertaining it whatsoever, right? So basically seek that initial feedback from council, take it, so he's planning to present the constitutions to the BIAs at their AGM, basically, I guess, regardless, right? It's just a matter of whether that's the initial feedback, whether that's before council provides the initial feedback or after, logistically, if that makes sense. So basically, if the discussion with the BIAs that you want, we will just do that at the AGM because there is no Board of Management, right? Because the Board of Management ceased to exist as a result of the turnover in council. So if that's, I guess, if that's the motion you want to make, then we can certainly proceed with that.
Well, I just don't think it's I guess, use the word fair to put a limit on someone's membership through council, saying, okay, we're going to go with option, they only have 39 members, when they may have 105. The more members on a BIA, the better. I just don't see us making that decision as council. I just don't see that being any of our business, how many members they have, or how big of an area they want to pull in, without consultation. Like I say, if they say they only want 39, then I'm all for it, because they're the organization, not me. So I just find this to be a little preemptive, going into have Dimitri go to a general meeting and saying, council says you're only going to have 20 members. How do you like it? I mean, I'd rather hear their position before I make a decision as council, but I'll leave that up to, I already have a motion on the table, so.
Yeah, so I guess as a starting point, I'll read back the motion that he's got on the table. Or do you want to speak first? Either's fine.
I'll maybe just comment briefly in terms of, so committees of council, right, work at the discretion of council. And essentially, you establish a committee, and in this case, with the respect to the BIAs, the committee is established, and the Board of Management brings forward a budget that council approves, and you levy money from ratepayers that is then used at the discretion of the Board of Management. So the Board of Management says, we need X number of dollars to do these 5 projects, and you as council say yes or no. So the committee works for council, I think, just in terms of, just for clarification. And so you as a council decide what projects are going to be done and how much money is going to be collected. And then you also you're basically giving authority or tasking the Board of Management to complete the projects that you have approved through approval of the BAA's budget. Have I confused things, or have I clarified things? Does that, just hopefully clarifying that in terms of.
Yeah, it still doesn't explain why we would have any say in their membership. There's the amount of how many members they have, and how many stores they can have involved in their BIA, because that's what's on the options here. So if I can get clarity for that, that'd be.
Yeah, so I guess the options aren't limiting the number, it's limiting the, I guess, type of business you would levy from. So I believe the options Dimitri has are in regard to whether you would want to levy from, for example, the industrial sector, whether that is a common practice. I certainly couldn't speak to myself. But those are the kind of options that you, so it's not putting a number specific on, you can only have 100 members. It's who are the type, what classifications of businesses do you want to levy from for the BIA?
But it'll slash their operating capital. They barely get by. It's not a large amount of money it is given to the BIAs, and that is their operating budget for the year. And if we, as just a vote of council, slash that in half, that has a big impact.
Go
So
ahead,
a
Councillor Wright.
question through you, Reeve. So with respect to the Wingham Ward, though, if we don't levy the industrial properties in town, would that not then take them off the BIA? And remove their ability to participate in the BIA?
I believe they would have the ability to participate as an associate member.
Right, but I guess this is to Councillor Faulkner's point. I don't want to make the decision to take someone off the BIA that wants to be on it, right?
Associate members can vote, though. You can have there's a specific number normally of how many can sit on the board, right? So you can't, if your board's made up of 9, you can't have 9 associate members, for example. But generally, associate members can still sit at the table.
What do you suggest then?
Yeah, so I am crafting a motion based on Councillor Faulkner's direction here, but basically the motion would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby tables the discussion regarding business improvement area governance and constitutions to allow for the Economic Development Officer to present the draft constitutions at the annual general meetings of the BIAs for feedback and to be presented back to council at a future date.
You're the mover?
I agree with that.
Seconder? Seconder? Go ahead. Mitch?
Question.
Oh, yes.
Question, Reeve. So, is it hands-off right now for us? Like, sure, defer it to their respective annual meetings. Like, they operate under their own power type of thing? Like, so we have nothing to do with it? Because if we have nothing to do with it, why did it even come forth?
Didn't.
It is. We're looking at it.
They didn't bring it.
I didn't say they did. I did not say they did. I said it's come forth. So it's just a question. And that goes for any agenda item that we have. Like if it's not directed to us, why would it be there? And I can't think of any examples. But is this one? Like it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter to me. If they want to operate under their own power and do their own thing, fine. They'll still be asking for money from us, so that's where we do get tied up. So just a simple question.
So through Reeve Heifer to Councillor Palmer, if I'm understanding your question correctly, no, the BIA cannot operate independently of council.
So that's why it's here tonight.
The BIA, like regardless of the process of whether the feedback is provided from council to the BIA and then the BIA back to council, or from the BIA directly to council, council ultimately has to ratify the appointments to the Board of Management as well as the constitutions of the BIA. So I guess for clarity, Councillor Falconer is just asking that the BIA provide their feedback first and then council make a decision, as opposed to council provide feedback, then the BIA provide feedback, and then council make a decision. So in reality, it gets you to the same place regardless. Both are going to be provided the opportunity to provide their feedback. It's just sounding like there's not the appetite to do that first as council, independent of the BIA membership providing their feedback first.
So we'll move.
You have a mover and a seconder.
And a seconder. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay,
So now you're at agenda item 7.6.4.
7.6.4 CAO 2022 Council and Staff Relationship Policy Orientation. I have a mover. Yes. Anita Van Hitterson, Council, and Councillor Whitfield. That the motion, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the CAO dated December 5th, 2022 regarding the council and staff relationship policy. Do we have any questions for CAO Evans? You didn't want to speak to this at all? You're all right? Okay, we go to all in favor. Carried. Correspondence, none. Council reports. I just have to mention that I was sworn in last week at the county meeting, and that was the Reeve activity report. Council member reports, should be none since the committees aren't formed yet. Comments by members, any comments? Go ahead.
Just a note, we're starting to hear about this Bill 23, and it's affecting different groups, conservation areas, and probably us. Is it worth staff sort of giving us a shortened version of how it would affect us, or do we just deal with it as we buffet against it?
Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, through you, Reeve, in terms of, we can certainly bring forward a report speaking to the impacts. We have done an initial assessment of it, and, I mean, there will be impacts that, but we're not the only municipality that will be impacted. But we can certainly bring forward a report speaking to that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments by members? Go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Reeve, it's, I guess, a question for staff. I'm just curious when any business concerning the house and dam is going to come back before council. I thought RFPs were out and I thought RFPs were received, but I don't believe those have been brought to council, so just curious on that.
Yeah, through you, Reeve, in terms of, I've been speaking with the interim director of Public Works and Facilities in terms of those tender results, so we do need to bring those to council. And further, in terms of, with respect to the tender results, in terms of the other conversation, I guess, is in terms of financing for that. That may come through your first draft of your budget, in terms of your capital projects, in terms of moving those forward in 2023. So expect something by the end of the month.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Sorry.
I got three. Yeah, I'd just like to congratulate the BIA and the Wingham Parade Committee for being involved in the Santa Claus Parade last week. I was thrilled to see how many people were actually out on the street. We had a great day for it, great weather for it. But it's always nice to have a community event like that. And I'd like to put a word out. Blythe's going to have one on the 10th. If anybody out there in the listening land would like to show up for that. But yeah, I just want to congratulate them again on such a great achievement.
Well, it had to be a lot of people there because we're told we have lots of candy, and I had to quit going to the sides there, but that's a good sign, really good. Yes. So were there any other comments? Any notice of motions? Okay, bylaws, 10.1, bylaw 106, 2022, appointment of Director of Finance / Treasurer, that the bylaw number 10622 being a bylaw to appoint Director of Finance Treasurer for the Corporation Township of North Huron be introduced, read first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve Clerk and engrossed in the bylaw book. Do I have a mover? Councillor Palmer, second by Councillor McBurney. All in favor? Carried. 10.2, bylaw number 107, 2022, appointment of deputy treasurer / payroll clerk, that the bylaw number 107, 2022, being a bylaw to appoint a deputy treasurer, payroll clerk for the Corporation Township of North Huron, be introduced, read first, second, third, and final time, be signed by the Reeve clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Mover? Deputy Reeve Faulkner? Counselor Whitfield, all in favor? Carried. 10.3, bylaw 108, 2022, appointment of fire chief, that the bylaw number 108, 2022, being a bylaw to appoint fire chief for the Corporation of the Township of North Huron, be introduced, read first, second, and third, and final time, be signed by the Reeve clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Do you have a mover? Counselor Whitfield, followed by Counselor Wright. All in favor? 10.4, bylaw number 109.
Make sure you call the vote carried.
Carried, and that carries this previous 1.3. 10.4, bylaw number 109, 2022, appointment of interim director of public works and facilities, that the bylaw 109, 2022, being a bylaw to appoint an interim director of public works and facilities to the Corporation and Township of North Huron, be introduced, read a first, second, and third final time, be signed by the Reeve and clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Do I have a mover? Counselor Van Hitterson? Counselor McBurney? All in favor? Carried. Announcements. The next budget meeting will be held on Friday, December 16th, 2022 at 9 a.m. right here in the Town Hall Theater. And our next regular council meeting will be held on Monday, December 19th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in the Town Hall Theater here. Is there any other comments? Seeing none, none noted. Other business, none noted. Closed session, reporting out, none. Confirmatory bylaw number 110, 2022, confirmatory bylaw, that the bylaw number 110, 2022, being a bylaw to adopt, conform, and ratify dealt with by the Council of Township of North Huron at the December 5th, 2022 meeting, be introduced, read, a first, second, and third and final time, be signed by the Reeve clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Do you have a mover? Counselor Wright? Counselor Van Hitterson? All in favor? Carried. Adjournment, that the Council of the Township of North Huron agree that there being no further business before council, the meeting be hereby adjourned at
7:28 p.m.
7:28 p.m. Do you have a mover? Counselor McBurney, Deputy Faulkner, all in favor? Carried.